and for when there's questions, when it's time to ask questions, there's a chat button. It's a little bubble there. You can click on that, and the chat enables you to send a note to everyone or individual people who are on the call. And you can also use the chat when it's time to submit a question. If you want to ask a question to John Taylor, if we have time for questions as part of the meeting, you can do that then, and we'll track those questions and answer and give them to John in the order which they were submitted. So there we go. That's it for how this works.
And
are there any quick questions about it?
Have we posted the minutes from last month's meeting on the website? Or do we have a post of last month's minutes, Diane?
Yes. So I am going to share the minutes from the last month's meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so you should be able to see these now.
Okay, that looks good.
Does that look right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is June 15th. We went from 7 to 8:30. And we had a great number of participants. There's a list of the people who attended. So have a video of the meeting if anyone would like to watch it, and the transcription of the meeting, and doing the same for tonight's meeting as well.
Okay.
Minutes, Webex instructions. David welcomed us. The May 18th minutes were reviewed and approved. The meeting agenda was reviewed and approved. Policies and procedures. And then we had questions and answers on bylaws and policies. And we made some changes, some minor changes to the bylaws. And they were approved. The policies and procedures were approved as well. And the meeting was adjourned. And we set the date for the next meeting.
Is there anyone opposed to adopting these minutes? Hearing no opposition, we are adopting the minutes from last month. And do you have our agenda for tonight, Diane?
Yes, the agenda for tonight is on our website. And I will see if I can share the website. Let's just see that. Yes, that worked.
Great.
Okay. Oh, you should be able to see. I'm going to make it bigger here. Can you see that? The meeting agenda?
Okay.
Very good. This is good to know because I can then. It's good to know that I can share my screen. So if we need to go to some other place on the website, I can easily share that as well.
Okay, and Diane, I see you indicate board nominations, but we're not making nominations. It's just discussing the process. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're going to discuss the process of nominations and discuss how we're going to do that and how the elections will take place as well a little bit.
Okay, and are there any corrections or additions to the agenda? Well, hearing none, I'll adopt the agenda and let's move on to our meeting. Now, our main guest for today is John Taylor, and John Taylor is the first director of the new Department of Local Services, which is intended to be the go-to agency for unincorporated King County, including, of course, Vashon Island. John had come from the Department of Natural Resources and Parks, where he's been an assistant division director. We have submitted 10 questions in writing to John so that he would have a chance to look at the questions and prepare for them. And John, I also would like to hear, you had indicated you wanted to give us an update on things at the county vis-a-vis Vashon Island. So if you could start with that, and then we could move on to questions. All right?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, first off, let me just say congratulations on being a fully consolidated organization. That's a big step, and very welcome by the Department of Local Services. It's been something that's been missing on Vashon, is kind of a community, yes, where we could go to and have a forum where we could talk about things that were happening on the island. So nicely done, and congratulations. I think
Thank you.
I'm gonna kind of just give a quick overview of what's been happening with the Department of Local Services, rather than specifically with Vashon Island, just writ large. You know, the Department of Local Services was created in 2018, and I became the director January 1 of 2018. And in my tenure, we've had the biggest snowstorm in 50 years. We had major mud impact Vashon very much, but they were highly disruptive out in unincorporated King County, in the eastern part of the county this winter. And then, of course, the pandemic. And somebody needs to mute their phone. If you need to mute your phone. There you go. That's the mantra of the COVID-19 pandemic. Someone needs to mute their phone. So we've, since the pandemic started, the Department of Local Services was basically enlisted by the executive's office to help respond to COVID-19 in a couple of different ways. About 3 of my top staff were taken right out of our office into the executive's office to help coordinate the response around mid-March, and were there for 3 or 4 months and came back to our office pretty recently. Bong and his colleague, Marissa, were pulled out to work on kind of the COVID-19 phone line. And our outreach crew, Bong, David Daw, Hugh Garcia, have been very involved in working on the siting and mitigation of quarantine and isolation facilities around the county. I think people are aware, the county has a lot of motels. They actually went out and built some modular housing. They've been isolation and quarantine facilities. And we were very involved in working with the communities around those facilities to do some communications work and work with some of the businesses that were concerned they would be adversely impacted by that. We've also been very involved in handing out protective gear, masks, hand sanitizer, and trying to get that out into the community and the unincorporated community. And then most recently, over the last month, we launched a small program with grants for up to $5,000 for small businesses that had adverse impacts from COVID-19. That grant round closed on Friday, and we had very good representation from Vashon. I haven't seen the final numbers yet, but it looks like we had good knowledge about the program on Vashon and a lot of applications from Vashon. We're going to start churning through those applications and trying to get money out the door as quickly as we can to businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. You know, for some of the really small businesses in unincorporated King County, $5,000 can mean the difference between shutting down or staying open for another couple of months to ride this out. So kind of lastly, there's also just all the work of people that needs to go on. We've been very busy. The entire road services division, and I'm sure people on Vashon have seen our crews out working, those are essential employees. And they've been working throughout this crisis from the very beginning, and have been out doing, responding to damage from rainstorms, clearing brush, doing all the maintenance work that they typically do as roads maintenance workers. We had some concern from the public early on, and actually had to have signs fabricated that said, we're essential workers. When they're at a job site, please keep back at least 6 feet if you want to engage with our crews. But they continue to, they just continue to show up every single day and put in a full day's work, irrespective of what's going on out there. We've had very, very low absenteeism from that crew. They've, typically their rates of absenteeism are pretty consistent with where we were before the pandemic. So people are coming in, doing their work to keep the road network open. They're just doing a great job. And the crew on Vashon is a great crew. And I came out, I don't know, about 2 months ago and visited with them for a morning and just checked in. We're trying to check in with all the crews and make sure people are doing okay. This is, as all of you know, hard on everyone and kind of a weird way to transact business. It's being on computer screens all day long. I find myself getting on and at 5 o'clock, I don't know where the day has gone, and I'm, still looking at the computer. So with Vashon, I've been in touch with Chief Crimmert. I'm actually coming out on Wednesday to meet with Chief Crimmert just to see how things are going. Hugo Garcia, our economic development manager, has been in touch with the chamber and with a lot of the businesses to make sure people were aware of the small business program. Bong, who is on the call, who's a stalwart on Vashon, has been involved in getting personal protective gear out to people on the island and coordinating with the business community and also with sort of the locus that the chief has set up for responding to the emergency. So that's sort of my high level remarks about kind of where we are. In the midst of all of this, we've also just gotten a new department up and running and are trying to do sub-area planning and are trying to get the comprehensive plan passed by the council tomorrow and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But the wheels of government continue to turn even in a global pandemic. Happy to go to the questions that you all sent in, and I'll kind of go through those sequentially. And people should feel free to jump in if they want to. The first is from Bianca Perla. She wrote, I work for Vashon Nature Center, and we have been experiencing an increase in RV dumping going on near some of our study sites. Some of this dumping is near beach sites we survey and goes directly into Quartermaster Harbor. We have also seen dumping in a storm drain that leads directly to one of the biggest salmon-bearing creek shingle mill. This issue seems to be increasing around the island and is exacerbated by the fact that we have no place for people to dump RV waste legally on Vashon. Anyway, you get the general gist. This is an issue that was brought up to me by Chief Crimmert about a month and a half ago. We have identified a hauler on the island that wastewater is familiar with. Initially, I spoke with the wastewater treatment division to see if they had the capacity at the sewage treatment facility on Vashon to take pump out from RVs. They do not. The nearest facility at least where King County has a facility, is at the Renton wastewater treatment plant. But as I said, we are aware of haulers on the island, haulers meaning people who pump out septic tanks. And we're gonna establish a relationship. I'm sorry. Okay. So we're going to establish a relationship with one, and I think the piece that's missing and what I'm working on is figuring out how to pay for that. So that is the answer to question one. Question two is an update on what the King County Council is doing regarding the West Seattle Bridge, and what King County is doing regarding the West Seattle Bridge. So important to note right out of the gate that the West Seattle Bridge is not a bridge that King County is responsible for. It is a City of Seattle structure. It's not a state highway, it's a city road. And so the City of Seattle is responsible for that bridge. I know that the executive lives in West Seattle. Councilman McDermott lives in West Seattle. A number of the people who work in the executive's office live in West Seattle. There's an acute interest in resolving this issue. With that said, it's purely within the responsibility of the City of Seattle how they resolve this and how they prioritize it. We are communicating with them and trying to work with them. But I would just say, and really all I know is what I read in the papers and hear anecdotally. The plan, as I understand it, is the plan that they rolled out several months ago, which is probably 2 years until they're able to retrofit the bridge, if that's possible at all, and then 10 years to find a replacement. That's the last story I heard from the Seattle Department of Transportation. I don't think that has changed. I don't think their thinking has changed as far as I'm aware. And that is going to create some huge disruptions within the city. It's pretty bad now trying to get from West Seattle to downtown. And that's in a time when most people aren't going anywhere. I shudder to think what it's going to be like when we have a vaccine in place and people begin to get back to a normal daily routine, a normal daily commute, because the roads that are bearing all that traffic to and from West Seattle are just not designed or set up to handle that kind of a volume of traffic. It's pretty crazy. Question 3 is from Mark Nasuti. Roads, are there any metrics around potholes, crumbling pavement edges? Like how many potholes are there? How many get fixed? How do they get fixed? Is there a pothole hotline? Same with pavement edges. So he's actually got several questions here. On that, yeah, there is. There's the county does ratings on the road network every year, and I can get that data for you. I'm trying to see if I can identify the website where it lives, but I don't think I can. However, I can give you the number for the Pothole Rangers. So King County has a crew that we call the Pothole Rangers. They're a utility sort of player. They go where the complaints are. Roads has a 24/7 helpline, 206-477-8100. Again, that's 206-477-8100. You can call that number and you will almost always get a live human being, unless they have a lot of calls coming in. And when we do get big snow events and things like that, we amplify the number of people who are answering that line. So you, in almost all cases, will get a live person, but you can report trees down, debris on the side of the road, abandoned cars, potholes, really anything that you see. They are really good about generating work tickets immediately. And then wherever it is, the district manager who oversees that part of the county will make judgments about what's getting prioritized first and do a bit of triage. But they really do get to things very quickly. Mark's next question was about affordable housing. What would it take to create 500 homes, apartments cheap enough so that a minimum wage couple can pay the rent and have money left over for everything else, and have those units built in 2 years? King County scrambled to deal with COVID-related housing problems and got things done incredibly fast. Can we channel some of that energy into fixing this problem? I think it's a great question. I don't have a great answer for you. We are doing a housing demonstration project right now that started several years ago to answer that question on Vashon and in White Center, to see if there are affordable market rate housing mixes that actually would address this very question you're asking. So it isn't like the housing authority coming in and building it. It is the private markets coming in and building it, and King County having code and permitting requirements that makes that able to happen quickly and relatively inexpensively so that the rents are affordable. And if you want to learn more about that, I'm happy to connect you with folks in the permitting division and in housing who've been working on it. But it's a great little pilot project that's going on right now. Next question from Mark was thumbs up for town road closures at busiest pedestrian times, e.g. First Fridays or special events. Would like to see a permanent solution. The idea of allowing restaurants to create outdoor space in the street is fantastic. Could this happen in parking lots too? It can. The executive just signed a executive order sort of putting out the framework for how, if people want to apply for that, what the permitting requirements would be. We're trying to move quickly to respond to COVID-19 so that businesses who don't have outdoor space can actually access it right now during these months where they can set up seating outside. There are some things that they will need to have in place, like insurance, and providing the county with some indemnification if they're planning on using the county's right of way, because one of the issues we just have to deal with is liability when we let people use the right of way. They need to be able to demonstrate to us that they're going to bear their fair portion of the risk for the use of the right of way. But something that the county council identified about a month and a half ago, they acted very quickly. We've responded quickly, and I think we're in a position where we can begin to help businesses deal with that. Next question is from Richard Gordon. In the past, King County has offered to connect Beale Road to 91st Avenue Southwest to create a useful downtown bypass. This should be looked at again, especially in light of suggestions to close Vashon Highway. Occasionally, weekends or more permanently. The usual bypass routes are difficult and very dangerous. The Beale Road 91st Avenue connection has many people who are loudly against it, but it affects the entire island population, including public transportation and public safety anytime the main road is closed. I mean, we're willing to look at anything if there's a proposal to close the main drag through downtown. I think that there, as anyone who, you know your community better than I do, that there are absolutely pros and cons with doing that in terms of traffic disruption. But we're happy to look at any ideas that the community has about ways to create more vitality in the downtown commercial district. So there's a sort of more of a statement. There's an article from ABC News, global warming brings wildfire risk to rainy US Northwest. The article from a year ago states Northwest towns are woefully unprepared for wildfire risk. I asked on the Facebook page for the whole Vashon project if this was the case on Vashon. A good number of people agreed and said that Vashon forests need tending and we need more guidance in general about what to do on our properties and possibly an island standard for which there's financial help to achieve. And then Diane Emerson very helpfully responded that provided information about what is called the FireWise program. It's a state-sponsored program that's administered by the King Conservation District and King County. King Conservation District typically deals with small residential homeowners. King County Water and Land Resources Division, their forestry program, deals with small lot foresters, and both programs teach people how to manage their forests to reduce the risk of wildfire, and for private residential property owners, also kind of what good clear zones are around their property, to clear brush and debris away, to make sure that there isn't any kind of duff accumulating on the roof of their house or on garages, gutters, and other helpful tips. But they take them through a whole process to help people understand what they need to do. And I really appreciate this question because this is a real issue on Vashon and elsewhere. We're very lucky this summer, knocking on wood, thus far, that we haven't seen any major wildfire risk in Western Washington. But if people remember last summer, the issue for us last summer was trying to find enough masks for our roads crews for wildfire smoke. So Hopefully, again, I'm knocking on wood, that isn't going to be an issue this summer. But increasingly, we're seeing fires on this side of the mountains where we did not used to. And if you do live amongst trees, it would be worth contacting the King Conservation District and asking about that. And you want to reach out to Matthew Axe. His last name is a good name for a forester with the King County King Conservation District. And his number is 425-282-1900. Again, Matthew Axe, 425-282-1900. Also, you can just Google Firewise King County and you'll get a bunch of resources. 3 questions for me from Cindy Young. King County Solid Waste has hired a consultant, HDR, to study one or more specific sites on Vashon to determine if it is feasible to install a compost facility on them. When asked to specify the location of the sites in consideration, Morgan John of King County Solid Waste Division told me that this is only a feasibility study and no specific site has been picked. I know that. I want to know the location of sites that are under consideration. I have found out through the grapevine that one of the sites is the Borrow Pit within Center Forest on land owned by Parks. What are the other sites, if any? I have also written the directors of King County Solid Waste and Parks and Recreation have received no reply. What is the precedent that allows the installation of any kind of facility such as an aerobic digester within County Park, critical aquifer recharge area, a wetland, a stream buffer near homes? What is the status of the feasibility study? I hear rumors it is on hold. I checked in with Christy True, who is a Maury Island resident, on this today. She said that the study is still underway. There are no specific sites that are being evaluated. The feasibility study is being done in collaboration with Zero Waste Vashon, who is, I think those of you I'm sure know who live on the island, has been very involved over the years on trying to improve and expand the range of solid waste services that are available to folks on the island. They'll basically try to figure out what the market is, if it actually is something that could pencil out. I worked in the solid waste industry for a number of years. I can tell you that composting facilities are difficult to site and expensive to operate. So they're, in all cases, a challenge to get up and running. You need a pretty big market to make it work. Cedar Grove, which is very good at it, struggles, I think, because there are so many challenges with operating it, including end markets for the material once you produce it, and dealing with the impacts to surrounding properties. So no sites identified yet. What I will say is whatever the outcome of the study is, if it were deemed feasible, then there would be a public dialogue about what that would look like and where it would go, and then there would be permitting. It would be a complex undertaking. So I would wait and see what the feasibility study tells us, and then you can make some judgments about how supportive you are or how concerned you are about the development of a composting facility on Vashon. Kate Blandon had a similar, or actually pretty much the exact same question. I'll read her question, though there's some slight differences, and I don't know that I can answer all of these questions. Why is a composting facility with or without a digester being considered for Vashon when the negative effects of these facilities on neighbors, issues, and nuisances are well documented? We do not have to look further than Cedar Grove facility to see the effects. As a feasibility survey for a composting facility is currently underway, what research has been done on the effects of the critical aquifer area that is near one of the proposed locations at the transfer station of Borrow Pit of King County Parks? Why is King County Parks land being considered as a possible location for a composting facility? The fact that the land once did not belong to Parks is moot. If a prior private owner who sold the land to King County and asked for it back, this would be denied. How is it guaranteed that there will be no effect on the wells in the vicinity of a composting facility some of which are within a few hundred feet or part of the critical aquifer area. What are the locations being considered for a compost facility with or without a digester? The parties involved in the project proposal are not forthcoming with details. Residents should be privy to all information regarding this possible, I think that's possible, composting facility, yet they are not. So what I would say is, I think you've raised a bunch of really good questions about this. As I said, my understanding is there are no specific sites that are being evaluated. It is a much higher level feasibility study. And I think if I will follow up with folks in the solid waste division and with Christy, and if you would like to have someone from the solid waste division come on out and talk to you next month about this project, I'm sure they would be happy to do that and give you a face-to-face on this. Morgan Brown, with roads being one of the two main hats you wear for local services, what are your thoughts on Vashon pedestrian and bike road improvement proposals, including a pedestrian Main Street, described in an editorial piece in last week's Vashon Beachcomber? Vashon is often thought of as an attractive venue for bike enthusiasts and destinations for bike excursions, and yet there are many aspects of the roads that remain unfriendly to bikes and pedestrians. The section from town to town center and the 3 public schools, with its 40-mile-per-hour speed being the most obvious example. The opinion piece in the Beachcomber by Shane Jewell and the information at his link to the Bike Vashon Roadmap offer some creative and timely solutions worth consideration. I love this question. I think we should always be looking at improving pedestrian and bike facilities for the public. And I always think pedestrian streets are intriguing ideas. We have a number of people who are thinking about them around the county right now because of COVID-19 to create outdoor space for businesses. They need to be done in a way, when they're being done, that recognizes the traffic impacts of closing a segment of road. That's the only thing. So I think, we at local services and within the road services division are willing to have those conversations, but whatever we do, it needs to be done in a way that maintains traffic flow for people who need to get around and for emergency vehicles. And it needs to be done in a way that is safe and doesn't create risks to the public and being candid liability to the county. Those are the things we worry about. I think with respect to the broader questions around pedestrian facilities and bikes, I would be remiss if I did not let people know that I think one of the things I talked about the last time I was out with this group, and I've talked about many groups on Vashon, is the situation with the King County Roads Fund. The King County Roads Fund is one of the most undercapitalized funds in the county, and that was in good times. We were probably fully $100 million short annually of the money we need to just do the basic maintenance of the county's road. And it has been that way for almost a decade. And as we will make it through this biennial budget, probably able to maintain the same level of service we've been providing for the last several years, since the major downsizing in 2008 after the housing crisis. However, the next biennial budget is really problematic and will likely mean, unless there is a fundamental change in the revenues we have access to, probably mean a cessation of the capital program and a scaling back of maintenance activities. That's kind of what's looming on the horizon for us, unless there is a major change in the county. And in an environment like that, where we spend our money is on those things that have life safety, urgent needs, rather than things like bike or pedestrian facilities. We do build bike and pedestrian facilities, but we generally go after grant funding from the state to build those. And we've got a couple of projects in this next biennium where we're building sidewalks in urban unincorporated King County. But the access to dollars that we have, the first absolute priority is maintaining the system and looking out for life and safety. And that means bridges, that means maintaining main arterials so they're safe. It doesn't leave a lot left over for things that we would love to build, but have a hard time doing it. Next question is from David Vogel. As you are well aware, the four-way stoplight in the town of Vashon is by far the busiest intersection on Vashon Island and is heavily used by pedestrians. There have been many near accidents at this location between cars and pedestrians. There have been questions about converting the center of town to a pedestrian-only thoroughfare. But short of that, there is a great need to make the pedestrian crossings for this intersection safe. Is the county considering lighting the crosswalks at this intersection? And if not, why? I honestly don't know the answer to this question. I know that it's a intersection that, you know, we've done traffic studies on in the past. This is one where I apologize. I was not prepared for this one, David. And I'm going to need to get roads to let me know what we've done and if we have anything on the books. I'm also happy to have them take a look at the intersection. Kind of going back to my previous answer, basically what roads does, and we get lots of requests for traffic lights and other facilities at intersections, and roads will do a traffic study, look at accident data, and then make a judgment about if it rises to a level where it needs a traffic calming device like a stoplight, so it becomes a controlled intersection or not. I honestly don't know off the top of my head what the history is on that intersection, but I will find out for you. And I apologize for not being prepared. And then I'm going to go back to one question that I skipped over. Burton Water Company is looking for an update on the recycled asphalt debacle. Will the hazardous materials be removed from Vashon? What steps can we take so that in the future, should there be similar threats to the Vashon aquifer, there is a clear channel to respond to such an incident? The reporting of steps being taken or not taken, current status of material is still poor. Groundwater Committee is not in the loop. Burton Water Company is not in the loop. How can Vashon respond to threats to our aquifer when there is no process to do so? It's a really fair question. And Jim and I had an exchange about this at a previous meeting. And I wanted to say to him, I think I was a little too defensive in my response, because as I went back and talked to people, it's very clear that we were not as timely as we could have been in responding. And sort of this thing started before my tenure here. So I just wanted to offer that to Jim if he's on the phone. I think the formation of this group is a great way to create a forum when issues like this arise in the future. And I will also just say that with the creation of the Department of Local Services, the way we're doing outreach around big roads projects is really changing, and we're bringing a lot more innovative communications tools to bear. And we are engaging with community in ways we never had before. I don't have a chance, so I came back and have a more elaborate outreach plan for that project that sort of started this whole thing. But I believe that if we were doing a project of that scope and scale today, we would probably approach the community in a really different way than we did at that time. With respect to what's going on right now, there is litigation around this issue, and there are a number of outstanding code enforcement cases that we're trying to work through, and I'm not going to say anything more about it here. If the Groundwater Committee or Burton Water would like a more detailed briefing, we can do that for you. But we need to consult with attorneys and kind of figure out what the scope of what we can share and what we can't share is. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's all the questions. And I'm happy to take other questions if people have them. So have at it.
Oh, there was a question, excuse me, that Diane Emerson had tried to pass on also, asking about a traffic light at the main intersection. And given the fact that we now have the ability to radar control traffic lights, what used to be perceived of as a real waste of time to have a traffic light could go much smoother. So that was something she brought up.
Let me get back to you on that. I just don't know off the top of my head. And I apologize for missing that one.
Okay, okay.
I have a question. I don't know how to ask a question other than unmuting myself, but
Go for it.
you know, during the summer season, I see you guys mowing the roadsides, but during the winter, we only get Vashon Highway plowed, and so anybody who doesn't have a 4-wheel drive or a Subaru with all-wheel drive has a hard time getting to the highway. And so I'm wondering if like Cove Road couldn't be like, I know the priority, there's a priority in terms of what you guys plow, but there seems to be a real lack of the cross island ability to get across.
Great question. We went through a big exercise with the county council after the snowpocalypse 2 years ago now, almost, looking at our snow response. And I would just say our crews did an amazing job in that snowstorm. I mean, given what they were up against, and you got a little bit of snow, but they had 4 feet of snow on the ground out in North Bend, 4 feet. I was out there driving around checking things out. The amount of snow they got was absolutely insane in places like Wilderness Rim, which is an unincorporated King County. And for, you know, a number of years, people have expressed some frustration when we have snowstorms with the lack of snow response. It's a direct correlation to the number of maintenance crews we have and how heavily staffed we are for maintenance.
So if it's a crew thing, how do we on Vashon approach King County to get more funding or whatever? Then I'm not talking about the apocalypse, you know, right? Apocalypse. But you know, other winter years, you know, occasionally, and maybe we won't have any more. I mean, looking at it, but how do we on Vashon get more money for that to you guys so that you guys could do the crossroads a little better, like some of the crossroads?
So what we looked at after the snowpocalypse was expanding our snow removal capacity. And basically we looked at 3 models. One was what you're suggesting, which is hire more crews, hire more people, get more equipment. That was a very expensive option because basically you're making a full-time capital investment and in vehicles and a human investment in people for a budget we don't have the base for. Right. So that was, I believe, don't quote me on these numbers, but I believe the cost for that biennially was on the order of like $7 million to do that. It was extremely next thing that we borrow drivers and vehicles from other departments during snowstorms. So like, for example, during the snowpocalypse, we were using graders. I don't know if everyone knows what a grader is, but it's like a tractor with a blade on the bottom that's used for road construction. It's great for grading roads so they're flat. It's also really good for removing snow. We borrow trucks. In that storm, we were borrowing everything. We were using vehicles from every department within the county and drivers from every department within the county who knew how to plow snow. We looked at basically taking the inventory of vehicles that other departments have and retrofitting them to take plows. Many of their trucks aren't outfitted for plows, but you know, you could outfit them for plows and you can buy some plows and warehouse them, and you could amplify your ability to remove snow. all of these options were based on 10 additional trucks countywide. We have 28 trucks right now. So this would have increased our snow removal capability by about a third in round numbers. And that was millions of dollars. I don't remember the exact amount. And the last option we looked at was basically putting out a request for proposals to private contractors.
Right.
And hiring private contractors to do the work. That was the option that we recommended to council. We drafted the RFP, we put it out, and we got no respondents. So we did that last year, and we had one bidder who really, after doing our due diligence, he had neither the vehicles nor the experience to do the work. So he was not really competitive. We were in the process of reevaluating that RFP to see if we could make it competitive when COVID-19 started. And being candid, I haven't checked in with the roads director on that topic in a while, but this is reminding me that I need to, because I think we do want to get one out for this.
So just, excuse me, so I used to live in Maryland, and there we only had snow every, enough snow to stop everything a few years, but there were so many private contractors there who filled in the space for the county. And so like you say, so you're saying that you couldn't find the private contractors. It would seem like on Vashon, I mean, that would be like a perfect opportunity for private contractors here to step up and volunteer to contract to fill in, at a cost.
Yeah, the thing to remember is the trucks that are moving snow on the big roads, they're not little F-150 pickup trucks. They need to be,
right.
They need to be a heavier duty truck. There are very few people. Basically, the sweet spot for those are construction companies who have heavy duty trucks. They would have to outfit them to take plows and salt spreaders, because it doesn't help a lot if you're not spreading salt and sand after you plow. There are ways to do it with multiple vehicles, but it's a lot easier if every truck has a plow and a salt and sand spreader and is equipped to do that. That's why I want to look at the RFP again. I think there are companies out there who might be interested, but you got to put yourself in the shoes of the company. It would require them to acquire equipment and outfit vehicles, and they might only get activated once every 5 years. We would want to execute the provisions in the contract, because most storms we can respond to pretty effectively countywide. And the other thing about the county is a lot of snow events are localized. The Snoqualmie Valley will get hammered. It's not that bad on the Enumclaw Plateau, or there's nothing on Vashon. And so we'll pull people and equipment from other parts of the county into wherever it's getting a lot of snow. It's when we have these big regional events, that's when you really see the system fray. So it's a great question, and believe me, we're thinking about it. When I was appointed director, I had a meeting with Councilmember Dunn, and he sort of laughed and he said, it's been 10 years since we had a big snowstorm. I think we're going to have one this winter. And I was like, yeah, I hope not. And sure enough, he was right. I'll never forget that storm. I was just sitting in my office 24/7, sweating bullets for 2 weeks straight. Anyway, thanks for the question. Other questions?
Okay, John, if I could just interrupt, I will be reading off the chat. People are lining up in the chat to ask questions. So the next question was from Adam Day, and that was, excuse me, could King County create a transportation benefit district for Vashon to address our own road issues?
The county has the authority to create transportation benefit districts. Generally speaking, they can only do it for the county. And so they had one a number of years ago and it was repealed. We've had conversations with them about doing it again as a possible way of generating roads funding. We were getting ready to do a levy lid lift, and I don't know if I talked to this group about it or not. And that idea went in the can when COVID-19 started. There's just no way to go to the voters right now with a levy lid lift for roads. So that's just a really long way of saying, I don't know whether we have the legal authority to create a transportation benefit district for a sub area of the county. I think the one thing you could do would be a local improvement district, which is it's a voter approved taxing district that is voted on by the property owners within wherever you draw the line. It's what was used to build the Seattle streetcar through South Lake Union. That was part of the funding mix, was a lid for downtown for Westlake. It's easy to pass because it requires a majority of the property owners. And since Paul Allen owned almost all the property, he had a majority of the votes before it even came to the ballot. I think, and don't hold me to this because I'm just spitballing here. I think theoretically, you could do an LID for some portion of downtown or maybe the entire island, but you would have to get everybody to agree to it and vote on it. And there would be an added tax increment on their bill every year that they'd be paying for infrastructure.
Okay. Deb Tversky asked, can you please restate the process for creating the next biennial budget?
Okay.
Chris had something. Okay.
So the county operates on biennial budgets, unlike a lot of cities. And the benefit of that is you get a sort of a mid-year break where you're still adjusting the budget, but it isn't as intense as what we're going through right now. So the biennial budget for individual departments are drafted basically from January to June 30th of the year that the budget's going to be submitted in. So this is a biennial budget year, 2020. It'll be the budget for the 2021-2022 biennium. And the process is we develop our budget, we submit it to the Office of Performance Strategy and Budget, which is attached to the executive's office. They review all the proposals that are in our budget. We may have proposed reductions, we may have some additions. This year, we're basically trying to hold a status quo budget. Some departments, local services is holding a status quo budget. Some departments are going to be doing reductions for sure, because when you think of like Metro Transit, gargantuan losses in revenue since COVID-19 started. So the executive gets all that on July 1st, basically. They work on it over the summer and into the early fall, and then they present their budget, our budget, executive branch budget, to the council on, I believe it's September 20th. And then the council has it until it has to be adopted by December 1st. Typically, the council works on that budget until Thanksgiving. They usually, their goal is always to vote it out before the Thanksgiving break. We, local services, working with Councilmember McDermott and Councilmember Zahalai, are making a pretty big shift in how the county is going to do budgeting going forward with respect to community. So the county is broken up into community service areas. That's the organizing principle for the Department of Local Services. Vashon is a community service area. That's why you get to see Bong at all your meetings. He is your community service area liaison. One of the things that we started working on almost a year ago was trying to inventory all of the community needs in each of the community service areas. And so imagine like just a long spreadsheet of you want traffic control at the main intersection in downtown Vashon. You want a process to warn you about capital projects that may have adverse impacts on the community. You do or do not want a compost facility. Remains to be seen where people end up on that. there are a whole host of things that are going on in Vashon, some of which we're aware of. We're more aware of them when there is a community council such as yourself in existence, because that becomes a fulcrum for information. So we've been doing some pilot work in Skyway, and we have a really elaborate community needs list, many, many, many pages long, broken down by transportation, human services, law enforcement, make it, pick just broad categories, very specific actions in there. The council is asking that those community needs lists be appended to each of the sub-area plans that we adopt for Vashon. For this county. Vashon went through a sub-area planning process about 4 years ago now. And it was a community-based plan, so it has a lot of this in it. What we're being directed by the council to do is have those community needs lists drive executive budgeting, so that we're very explicit about what we are paying for and what we are not paying for in biennial budget, so that the community understands what we are doing, and in some cases, what we're not doing. There's a longstanding desire to have a community center in Skyway. We do not have a community center budgeted for Skyway in this biennial budget. Not at this point, anyway. The council could change that. So that's where we are. I think where we will be in about 2 years, the next biennial budget, is a much more participatory, community-based budgeting process. That's our goal. And that's one of the things that the Department of Local Services is really working on delivering for not just Vashon, but for all of the community service areas in the county. Is a bigger voice in how decision-making gets made and how money gets allocated.
Okay. John, this is a question from Bill Moyer. Does the Department of Local Services have anything like online Zoom-like office hours? If not, maybe that would be an ongoing way to be virtually available as a resource to local folks, rather than this sort of avalanche of information, and a way to facilitate connection with other community members with similar interests, access to county, etc.
Yeah, it's a great, up until, I was looking at my calendar the other day, I've been doing a lot of journaling during this event, because I want to capture what's happening, and I was trying to reconstruct in my own head when I stopped doing office hours. So Department of Local Services had office hours in every community service area in King County. Ernesto Bong Santo Domingo, who is your community service area liaison, would be at the chamber offices every week on what day, Bong?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's right. And I would be in Fall City every Tuesday at the King County Library. And we had a bunch of other people who were in other places doing office hours. When COVID started, we stopped because, for obvious reasons, for social distancing reasons, but also because everyone, for the most part, was using libraries as where they did their office hours, and the libraries closed. So that was problematic. We've thought about doing kind of just an open Zoom call, but the problem with that is a lot of the time people would come in and want to talk to me about confidential things, like I got a woman signed up for Section 8 vouchers. I got her on the housing authority waiting list for an apartment. I've had people come and talk about code enforcement cases against them, things like that. So kind of an open call wouldn't work. But I do think we are trying to be super available to people during this time. And if they want to call and have a conversation like this with me or Bong, I'm always open to that. And that's an imperfect answer. I realize that. It's just this, we've wrestled with this a lot, and it's challenging. It's challenging because of the things people are coming in to talk to you about during office hours. They're not necessarily for a group public discussion. Pardon me.
Okay. Is there a thought of increasing service with the water taxi in order to take up the slack from the West Seattle bridge closure?
I believe that the mayor has stated that, yes, there is. There's all options are on the table, including increasing service. I think the limiting factor for the Marine Division is boats. They only have, I believe, two that are the main runs and then one that's a backup. And I think they would need to acquire another boat. And the question is, where's the money going to come from to add boats and add service? And that's as much as I know, but I know it's an idea that's on the table, and I think the city needs to figure out what they're going to do. As I said, I mean, I split my time between Rainier Beach, where I am right now, and West Seattle, because that's where my significant other lives. And I can just tell you that getting from there to Rainier Beach it's a journey. It's like it should have been the fourth book in the Lord of the Rings. It would become it would have been a quadrilogy if the bridge to Mordor had failed cataclysmically and they had to go around through some other. Sorry, I just watched Lord of the Rings the other night. It's a bad metaphor.
Okay.
It's a strained metaphor. I apologize.
What about the status of the Tramp Harbor Pier?
I don't know I know nothing about
the Tramp Harbor Pier is the only large pier on the island, pretty much, and it has become deteriorated. It's a fishing pier, pedestrian use pier. It's on the east side of the island, near Tramp Harbor, and it's decrepit now, and it had to be closed for safety reasons.
Who is it? Is it a county-owned structure?
It may be that the Parks Department took it over, but it's either county or parks.
Okay, well, one and the same. I'll look into it. I know nothing about it, but I'll get educated.
Okay, that would be a good one to look at because it's an important structure for the island.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And let's see. So far, that's all the questions that I have on the chat. Are there other questions that people would like to put into the chat?
David, there is a question from the chat that got missed.
No, Adam Day's question was asked. You
Was
might
it?
not have been. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure that got asked. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Oh, and then I guess there was a question whether the pier is connected to the Department of Natural Resources with the state. I'm not sure about that.
It could be a DNR structure. It could be one of ours. It's in all my years with King County, I've never heard of it. And if it was in our inventory, my suspicion is it would be with the Department of Natural Resources and Parks. But doesn't mean it isn't. I'll find out.
Okay, thank you. And if you could, those answers to questions that have been asked that couldn't be answered yet, if you could email me answers, then I can disseminate it
Sure.
to the group.
Happy to do that.
Okay, great.
And David, I do have a question. This is Cheryl. Sorry. Had
Okay.
It's great information. Does the county, how is the best way for us to get help around the infrastructure to support sort of more pedestrians and bikes downtown? Things like trash removal and trash cans. I know we're working with Zero Waste Fashion right now to put some trash cans in place in downtown, but also bathrooms. That's something else that's definitely been an issue, and wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Cheryl. Good question.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. One of my great frustrations is the way solid waste works in county is that if you're in a city, your garbage service is competitively bid. So the city of Seattle, for example, every 10 or 12 years puts out a request for proposal for solid waste service, and multiple companies come and they bid for that. And that has two real benefits. it brings really creative thinking to bear. And because there's real competition between these companies. And it also brings price competition. And I used to work for a garbage company, so I'm really familiar with this dynamic. Unincorporated King County doesn't have a competitive process. Unincorporated King County operates under certificates that were granted by the Utilities and Transportation Commission back in the 60s. And they've changed hands probably multiple times since then. And I don't know who the hauler on, forgetting who the hauler on Vashon is. I've seen their trucks, but there's no competition for solid waste service. So, for example, in the communities where I was bidding on garbage service, one of the ways that you could sort of sweeten the proposal is to do downtown litter can pickup. And so basically, you know, everyone in the city, when they pay their monthly bill, is paying for there to be street litter cans and for their collection of those street litter cans. We, the company I worked for, did pressure washing and graffiti removal. So that was one of the services we would offer. A lot of those companies have an annual free attic waste event. So you just put anything in your attic or in your basement out on the curb, and they'll come by with trucks and pick it up for free. So you don't have to go to the dump. The list goes on and on. The company I worked for, Cleanscapes Recology, actually has a store and service center that we piloted in Issaquah, and now all the cities want companies to build those. So it's just a function of the market. And my experience is you get way better service from haulers when there's competition. Unfortunately, in Vashon, you don't have competition. So anything we have to do as the county. We're trying to deal with that in White Center right now. We're trying to deal with that in Skyway. We're trying to deal with that in all the sort of urban, unincorporated places. So, sorry, it's not a great answer, but I think creating this council is a great first step for how you can advocate for more, and really helping us build out that community needs list, because that community needs list can include things like that.
And so a follow-up to that is about lights as well, because we just talked to PSE, and PSE has a lot of programs for improved, more energy efficient lights.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I didn't even know who to talk to. Is that something we should talk to King County about?
Yeah, you should just reach out to me and I can connect you with, it's probably going to be done by the Road Services Division, and you know, you've already heard my tale of woe there, but we can look at it absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
John, in follow-up to the question about Zoom meetings before, it was brought to our attention that you can have individual separate breakout rooms, so you could have confidential meetings.
That's a really good suggestion. I actually like that suggestion. I don't know, we may do it. Maybe we will do it. We've been on a hiatus. I liked office hours. I really enjoyed it. So, and it would be easy to do it. I mean, I can just sit here and look out at Lake Washington and do office hours. It wouldn't be bad.
Okay, great. Do we have any more questions? Let's see. Oh, wait, here's one. Vashon Makerspace is organizing the CSA grant to build 4 recycling stations for the town center.
Awesome.
Oh. Okay. Let's see, anything else here?
I would think that would be a very competitive CSA grant.
Good. Good. Jim Deers, did you have a question you were going to ask before?
No.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any advice for a guy? Another job that's not dissimilar to one you had once upon a time? I worked for Seattle City Council.
Okay.
I don't know if you know that. I was a central staff analyst for the Seattle City Council when you were the director of the Department of Neighborhoods.
Well, it's nice to have this kind of talent on our island.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I worked
He's
for
next to a
Jim Pierce.
former civil servant.
Great. All
Lots of
right. Well,
public service.
John, I think we've exhausted our questions for today for you.
All right, well,
So very much appreciate you joining our meeting, and I'm sure we'd like to have you again sometime soon.
Yeah.
If you, yeah. And if ever you,
really, anytime you guys want, I mean, Bong, of course, will always be here, but anytime you want me or anybody else, or if you are feeling the need to hear from other departments, let me know. Just email me or call me. I try to be, I'm not as responsive. I'm not as quickly responsive as I would like to be, but it's one of my goals for the coming year is to be better about managing email and everything else. I'm going to be a better human being. That's my goal, to just be a better person.
okay.
Thank you so very much. I'm Judy Kimmel, and I represent anybody who's Latin American, parla hablante, and here on Vashon Island. So whatever I can bring to you, please know that I will be doing it in Spanish for the whole entire community.
Muy bien. So, entonces, ¿conoces Hugo García? Nuestro manejero de desarrollo económico.
¿Puede ser? Claro que sí. Could be, yes.
He's the economic development manager. Hugo Garcia, he's our economic development manager. And also Latinx as well.
Sí, claro que sí.
Hugo Garcia.
Ándale pues, me comunico con él. I will talk.
Give me your contact info. I'll have Hugo reach out to you.
Perfectamente. Sounds good to me.
Perfecto.
Okay. And it was mentioned that Vashon Parks actually now owns Tramp Harbor Pier.
Oh, okay.
So is there a way to provide funding to Vashon Parks from the county to help with that pier?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll find out. I know that the Parks Department and the Vashon Park District have a good working relationship generally. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that, you know, there can be a discussion, see if there's something we can do to be helpful.
Great. Great.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you again. And we had a few other matters that we wanted to talk about with the community council regarding our upcoming elections.
All right. Well, I will leave you to that. You
Okay.
guys, I just want to say the capacity of people to do this kind of work and give their time at night after you've worked a full day just never ceases to amaze me. And I really appreciate the fact that you're doing it because it's needed. There really needs to be a coordinating point on the island. And I think, you know, given time, and we're here to support you in any way we can, you'll get there. You'll be, I think it's going to be really just a boon for the community. So thank you to everyone who has volunteered.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We've got a good long history here.
All right, you guys take care.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, John.
Adios.
Now, Diane, did you want to pick up the topic of the elections
Yes.
for the community council? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's time for us to really focus on getting a board together for this organization. We've got our bylaws, we've got our policies and procedures. We need a board. And in order to get a board, we need people to run for election, and we need a way to elect people using websites because we're not doing it in person. And so we've been working on these issues, and we have and the bylaws and the policies and procedures refer to a nominating committee and an elections committee. I would like to share my screen with a summary of those two committees so that we can take a look at that. And you can ask questions on the chat if you have questions about this, but I'm going to share my screen and just read something for everybody. You can take a look at this. The Nominations Committee, in the planning meetings for the re-emerging Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, there was a strong consensus that the organization should be as participatory and as inclusive as possible. Bylaws and procedures are drafted and approved accordingly so that key decision-making is vested with all residents rather than a few board members. In fact, the primary role of the board members is to engage residents in all sectors of the island, including affordable housing, business, culture and history, education, environment, faith, food, health and human services, Latinx, LGBTQ, recreation, safety, youth, and everyone else. Consequently, the nominating committee will function more like a recruitment committee. Rather than vetting and selecting candidates for the board, the committee members will use island-wide media and their personal contacts to encourage all residents to consider self-nominating. They will also do outreach through the organizations and communication channels of each sector to seek candidates. They will be responsible for ensuring that everyone who has expressed an interest has submitted a complete candidate form as described below. The goal of the nominating committee is to recruit as many candidates as possible, but a minimum of 7, with a good distribution in terms of gender and inclusion from the sectors identified above. That was all written by Jim Deere. Thank you so much, Jim. And the candidate form, Vashon-Maury Island resident who will be at least 16 years old on the day of the election can self-nominate by submitting a headshot and a candidate statement of 250 words or less to the nominating committee. The statement should include some background on the candidate, their reason for seeking a board position, and their connections to any specific sectors, organizations, or informal networks prepared to engage as a board member. Candidates must also furnish contact information so that the nominating committee can follow up as needed. We need people to volunteer to be on the nominating committee. Help with this work. Also need people for the elections committee. In 2020, because of COVID-19, elections will be conducted electronically. We've located a way to conduct the elections with help from OPA Vote, and there's a link there. The elections committee members will need to understand OPA Vote system and the concept of a single transferal vote. This is the type of ranked choice voting used in our type of election, where we're electing a group of people and not an individual. This understanding is important because the elections committee members need to explain the voting process to community members and answer questions about it. The elections committee will work with the communications committee to promote the election and encourage people to sign up and vote. Elections committee members are also expected to understand and follow the voting procedures outlined in the policies and procedures. So I will stop sharing this now. And okay, there we go. So
Yeah.
there we go.
One thing that comes to mind when I look at the description is that the nominations committee is trying to recruit as many people as possible, not exclude anyone. So wouldn't it be that someone who's on that nominations committee could also run for office?
And that's a
It just
question
seems
to who,
logical.
David?
I was just throwing it out there. I just, you know, in the past, I think there's been a problem with the nominations committee choosing a group of people to run, And this time we're basically trying to get as many people as possible. So it doesn't seem like being on the nominations committee would give anyone a leg up, so to speak, in the voting process. So I know in the past there has been perceived to be a conflict of being on the committee and running for election, but I personally don't see that kind of a conflict in this situation. And I was wondering if there were people in this meeting who felt otherwise.
This is Dan, and I've been involved in the discussion of this, and it occurs to me that can you hear me? Okay, I
Yes.
haven't tested. Okay,
I can hear you fine.
it occurs to me that if that is the case, if we get a lot of people to sign up to self-nominate, then we don't really need a nominating committee. The nominating committee is really designed to be there in case not enough people sign up to run. Just to make that clear, that was the discussion we had the other day. That it's if we're so lucky as to have a whole bunch of people sign up to run, then we really don't need much of a nominating committee. So it kind of solves itself. Any kind of conflict of interest.
So you don't perceive a conflict either, then? Dan?
Well, I perceive if there's a limited number of people running, then yes, I would perceive a little bit of a conflict. I would think that, if there's a scant number of people running, then it could be perceived that these people were guiding the people being nominated. So I would think it would be a bad idea to have people be selecting a few number. I kind of don't think we'll have that problem. I think we'll get a lot of people to agree to run.
I hope you're right.
I have a question for you, David, about this is Cheryl, sorry, from the chamber. What are the requirements for someone who actually is on the board? So on all the boards I'm on, we know exactly kind of whether it's a working board, how many hours we're going to be putting in, what the expectations are. And is that stated anywhere yet?
We have in the bylaws a description of the board responsibilities. I think in the policies and procedures we also do. In the past, we've had generally at least one meeting a month. And also we've encouraged board members to attend committee meetings so that they can be a liaison with the various committees. But I would say that you would expect the board members to attend the general meeting, to attend the board meeting, and perhaps one other meeting. So no more than usually 3 meetings a month.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, David.
Are you considering running? That would be great.
Well, I have, as you're very well aware, the Chamber is now a volunteer-only organization, and I do think that since we represent about almost 300 members on the island, we are working pretty hard. But the reason I ask about the time is I own 2 businesses, and I also own the board chair for the Chamber. So while I think the Chamber has to have a very large voice in what's going on because we do a lot of the work, and partner with a lot of organizations, I'm not really sure if the time will work.
Okay, well, perhaps there are other people in the chamber who would be able to do that, given the fact that you have so much responsibility.
I think the problem with the chamber board, just everybody owns businesses who actually are on the board, so we're all kind of in the same boat, a little bit.
Okay, so, I only own one business. Right. Okay.
So that's, I think, a little bit of people's concern. But anyway, that's okay. I'm curious about the timing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions about this process? Well, I would strongly encourage people to either get involved in this nominations committee or communicate to us that you're interested in running for a board position, because we would love to have a large number of candidates running for the board. Okay, and it's about 8:30 now. It sounds to me like we are pretty much done with our agenda, and our next meeting will be the third Monday of the month of August, which would be the 17th of August. So I look forward to people coming out to that meeting. I know that we're going to have a presentation from the, let's see, the Port of Seattle about the airplane overflight noise and locating a monitor for determining the kind of noise on Vashon, so that we can change the overflight patterns. We are also going to be forming a committee to study airplane overflight on Vashon. We are basically taking over a previously existing committee, or at least aligning forces with a previously existing committee. So anyone who is interested in looking at that important issue, please let us know. And at this
Okay.
point,
Wait, I have a question before we go.
okay, good.
I'm curious about the structure of this community council. Are there, do any of the other areas of unincorporated King County have community councils as well? And
Yeah,
and also, is there, is this something, I'm not exactly sure how to ask this, but is there anything in the King County Code that like has some formal relationship between local community councils and like John, who we just met with? So I'm just sort of a question about power, right? Like how much power does the community council have with relation to King County?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. And what happened is this community council has been around for, in the past, it had been existing for 40 years before it shut down as a result of getting too close to King County. Because around the 90s, King County started giving funding to the community council, officially designating it as a community unincorporated area council. And in so doing, it was determined that we had become an agency of King County. And because we were determined to be an agency of the county, we were therefore subject to the Public Records Act, which has all sorts of duties, responsibilities, and potential for liability. And so at that point, the council disbanded rather than be subjected to lawsuits. So we do not want to get too close to the county. However, the power that the community council has and has had over the years is basically determined by the public perception and by the agencies, the county's perception of how well this organization does represent the island. And over this 40-year period of existence, it had been thought to represent the island very well. As you could see from Mr. Taylor's response to our meeting, they love us because we are the best avenue for communication between the county and the island. And so the more work that we do with the county, the better our reputation becomes. And over the years, the community council was largely responsible for the 1984 Vashon Island plan, the 1994 town plan, naming the roads and streets, and a number of other things that we worked in conjunction with the county on achieving. And so the more communication, the more responsibility we take on, the more power we have. We cannot tell anyone what to do. Okay, so we basically have as much power as we are perceived to have. Does that
David?
answer your question? Yes,
Well, can I add to that?
Yvonne.
Hey,
Sure.
throughout the county CSA areas, not all of them have councils. I mean, there are community groups out there. They're calling themselves something else, but we do them. Okay. Now, what David's referring to is the unincorporated area council designation. So some of the CSAs, like in Four Creeks, Maple Valley, they retain, or including Skyway or West Hill and North Highline, they kept their council, even though they were what we call the what is that? We rescinded the unincorporated area designation to
Oh,
these
okay.
councils. Okay, so that's what we did. The King County did. So they still kept their council. They're running as an independent, volunteer-based organization. We, as King County, we still go to them. We still ask their opinion. We still make presentations to their community council, and we support their events. But not all of the CSAs have it. For instance, Fairwood is another CSA or part of a CSA, and don't have an organized group, so to speak. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions before we adjourn?
Actually, David, this is Cheryl again. I just wanted to make
Hey,
a
Cheryl.
request. If people,
Sure.
I'm getting ready to send another survey out to our business members, and we're actually including a section on town closure. So if people have specific questions that they would like to get information on, please direct those to me so I can include those. I'm just trying to get a handle on what businesses want, and especially in the time of COVID, and how we can make that work. So
Yeah, and Cheryl, I wanted to say that I'm impressed by how the chamber has been able to do these closures to allow businesses to work outdoors and have additional space like that. I think if we want to do a permanent closure, though, like a permanent pedestrian town center, we would do that through the planning process. We would try to do an amendment to the Vashon Town Plan. And that's something that had been done through the community council in the past, but I think working all together is a great way to do it. What we'd want to do is form a town plan committee to work with the county on it.
Oh, I agree with you. Make sure that we are hearing the voices of the businesses who would be impacted. And we're not making the assumption that road closures are what the businesses want. So I just want to make sure that we have data to understand that.
That's great. And we would love to work with you to get that.
Yeah, we do surveys out pretty regularly. So if you have questions, certainly let me know directly. I prefer to use boardpresident@vashon-chamber.com. So if anyone on the call would like to, if there's anything specific that you would like me to include in the survey, I'd be happy to.
Great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
This is Dan Schuler again. I have a question for Diane. I was missing for a few minutes from a little emergency we had here, but did you mention that the VMICC.net website will be being revamped real soon, and that when it comes up, it will start to include some of the things that we'll need to carry out nominations and elections, and there will be language provided that lays out the responsibilities and the expectations for board members when they are contemplating running for the board.
I didn't, because I also was locked out of the meeting briefly, but thank you very much for mentioning that it will indeed, the website will cover that. In fact, it does now, because it it has that included. All those responsibilities are included in the policies or the bylaws, one or the other.
Okay.
Yes, but the form for nominating yourself or anyone else, I'm not sure it's restricted to self-nominating, but the form will sort of lay that out in a succinct manner that make it easier to understand.
Yes, there will be a form for people to fill out. It's not there yet. And yes, my understanding is that only self-nominating would be allowed. There would not be, would we want someone who was didn't know they had been nominated and were on the
That would
slate
be
without
bad.
even, that would be bad. I don't think we want to do that to anybody. I think we want people to run who want it enough to fill out the form themselves.
Okay.
So I would say that we should, unless there's any objection to this in this group right now, I would say we should definitely just do self-nomination.
Also, I would welcome suggestions from anyone here as to topics for our next meetings, because that's always a tough thing to come up with timely topics for discussion. And so we are keeping our ears open to any suggestions. Okay. And thank you all again for participating. I'd like to adjourn the meeting at this time.
And our next meeting will be next month.
Thank
On
you.
the 17th of August. Thank you all.
Do you all do announcements at the end of the meetings or anything like that?
Haven't.
No, but we could if you have any more announcements.
Well, I assume that there are folks in the community who are doing lots of good work, you know, and it might be a good thing to have work into the agenda. I would want to just share the folks that one of the things that Backbone Campaign is working on right now is the creation of a Vashon Island time exchange. And I just put a link in the chat. But you know, as we approach a time when everyone's lives are, you know, where people are supposed to be, like normally they'd be going back to school, etc. We've put a lot of burden on the school districts and also have a lot of youth who are staying home from colleges. This might be a time when we relook at how we do education and how the community supports lifelong learning. And so the Vashon Island Time Exchange might be a really cool way for folks to sign up to teach something that they love, that they're passionate about. And so we were thinking about maybe even like doing you know, how the back to school day, Labor Day, maybe we do a community teach-in on that Tuesday, and folks sign up ahead of time to utilize by using the time bank idea. So that's one announcement that's the announcement that I would like to make. Check.
Do you have any other announcements you'd like to make, Phil?
Folks can volunteer for helping out at Matsuda Farm on Adventure on Resilience also, but no, that's the main one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And we omitted having an announcements at the end of the agenda. So it's a good time to do that right now. Are there other people who would like to make an announcement? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
There, finally.
Yeah, there I go. Am I muted?
I unmuted you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I was managing the muting while I was around. I disappeared twice in that meeting. I hope the recording kept going, so I'll be able to
Yeah.
pick up on what I missed from.
Yeah. It's the curse of
that.
Jeff.
Yeah, how did I get your curse?
Because I wasn't there, and somebody has to carry the curse.
So it switched over to Ryan. When this happened, when you weren't here yet, the first time.
Really?
And Ryan, the meeting switched over to Ryan.
Interesting. I wonder why.
Well, he must have a Webex account.
Oh, you're right. That would do it. We'll ask him.
Yeah.
That was a good participation. John's very good.
Incredible. We had 40 some people there.
Okay, when I got on, it was holding at about 38.
We were 42 max.
Okay, and then at the end, after John left, it was still holding at about 31.
Which was really amazing. So there's definitely a much greater interest in what's going on now.
Yeah, because they're talking about stuff besides bylaws.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That was good. I smiled when you grimaced at Dan. That's not what we discussed, Dan. I'm not sure who he was talking to. I thought, Dan, who are you talking to?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, well, we don't need one. Wait a minute. Hang on a sec. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done by the nominating committee. Not only that, but here's something I wanted to say, but Cheryl had her hand up, so she said, I'm talking.
Yeah.
And that is that there is an issue. If we have a nominating committee that just has a few people on it, and those people want to run the board, what would happen if those few people didn't do their job of promoting the election to people? Then they're a shoo-in.
Yeah, it's just the curse of the shoe. The curse of the shoe.
That could happen.
Yeah.
And that's actually a very key reason not to have people who are running for the board on the nominating committee.
And one of the things I wasn't going to, well, I didn't say anything, but at the end when there was that discussion, it says, remember, everybody here, Cheryl, even if you don't want to feel you can be a director, go promote this to get other people who can. I did notice that David put that out, and she said, we're all so busy. It's like, who isn't? For Dan, it was, hey, Dan, didn't you listen to what Diane just read? Yeah, it was like crazy.
Yeah, yes.
But that's Dan. I just couldn't expect it. Do you want me to make a phone call to Melvin and talk to him about being on the elections committee?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely, Melvin.
He will like it.
Yeah, and I think, as far as the committee being one or two, I don't think it matters. I don't think people really care. But I do really think that people can't be running for the board. I mean, that's just, when I realized what could happen if we don't have a lot of people signing on, and the nominating and the elections committee are composed of people who are running for the board, oh my God, that would be bad. And I don't care how much we say to people, well, we're just getting the word out. Well, you didn't.
You know my sarcastic response to them? You're frozen. Are you there? No, I hear nothing. I see your initials. Okay, are you back now?
Yeah, so I went away. You froze and I went away. Is that right?
Wow, I froze? You froze.
Yeah.
I didn't froze. Oh, no, it was you. I'm pointing over where you are on my screen. So going back over here, when somebody said, well, you didn't do X, Y, Z. And I said, well, where the hell have you been? And why don't you do anything? But anyway, the element is we can have, if there's only a few people on the committee, there are a few people on the committee, and everybody else gets to be a helper.
Yes. Just
like what we're doing.
That's right. I can be a helper. I can be recruiting people.
Yeah,
there's no reason I can't do that.
Yeah, the work's going to get done.
Yes, the work's going to get done.
Yeah, and it's just having a few, one or at least one person on each committee to be responsible for making sure that things that need to be in place, the forms in place, the connection with Upavote, that's happening.
Yes.
And
I would like to see two committees though, because there's a lot of work involved
I'm
for
agreeing.
both of them.
We're still doing two committees.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, that was the discussion we had at our helpers meeting. This is, we're not going to
Yeah,
address, trying
yeah.
to join them together. No. So we'll have, I'm sure, Melvin on elections. We'll have Jim Dyers on nominating.
Yeah.
I think I can get a couple of other people involved in nominating. One would be the food bank lady and the new executive director of Vashon Youth and Family Services. I'm going to call
Great.
up Oliver. Say, Oliver, where the hell were you? I didn't see your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And JP, JP, tired of your bitching, man. Get up
I'm
there.
glad I didn't listen to him for half an hour bitch about things not happening.
Yeah, it was only 20 minutes of the bitching. The other was, some value. It was going ahead. It was a great meeting.
Yeah, it was a great meeting, boy. John Taylor, he did a great job. And I really like what he said about the importance of the community council.
Oh, wasn't that great? Yeah, I like that
That
too.
was great. That was really important because there's some people who are here like Steve Bergman and the chamber and the head of the chamber who haven't been very supportive of the community council. Bergman was saying, well, the community council we have to have 1,000 people as a quorum before we can make a decision. That kind of thing.
And where's Jacob? Jake, whatever his last name is.
Yeah, he didn't show up. That's okay.
No. Was he there? Was he there the last one?
Yeah, he was.
He was, okay. So just this one. All right. So we're working on getting some folks. It's coming together.
It is coming together, and I got one positive response from my 15 letters. Who is a woman who is an incredible go-getter. She's the current president of the Groundwater Protection Committee, and she is really whipping that organization into shape. So I would so love her involvement. We're going to talk on Thursday.
A 10% return is pretty damn good.
Not in this. Not what I expected. Way bad.
Yeah, well, way bad would be 0. So
no, in this case. Okay, so I just copied and pasted all the chat so I don't miss anything there.
Oh, we're still recording, by the way.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So that means, nice going. Then we can't